What's happening, everybody? I'm Tommy, and you were on the lifeboat. How are you this evening? Well, I am, for better or worse, I'm doing a lot better than I was yesterday. Yesterday was a really tough day on the body. Wasn't as bad, on the mind, but it was a pretty rough day on the body. There's a lot that I want to talk about. Yukon Craig Nelius, good to see you. Sandy Wandy, what's happening? Jeremy Fowler. And from Massachusetts, Brock Bandy, West Lightburn. Did I say Sandy Wandy? Jane Aldrich, it is good to see you. I think I said Sandy Wandy. Honey, what's happening? You get old and you forget all of that. You can't remember things the way you used to. I used to be able to keep a lot in the old mind, but it wasn't an old mind at the time. So before we get rolling, a couple of things. P. Diddy is getting a brand new investigation out in LA. He screwed up big time. There was a producer. This is kind of fascinating if you think about it, people. I mean, the Diddy thing, look, Schadenfreude, like the show I did the other night, everybody is rooting for this guy to not end up in the best of situations because he's just kind of a reprehensible person. But a cat by the name of Jonathan Hayes, a music producer, you've probably seen him. I think Atwood had him on. He's been on a lot of different podcasts and a lot of different channels. And as it turns out, he took his case to Florida and he started a lawsuit. If this sounds familiar, it should, because this is within a couple of days of when Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit in the month of November. And hey, Rue, good to see you. And then within the following September, he was incarcerated. So he's currently sitting in jail at Fort Dix, where he got busted for drinking and for making phone calls in an illegal fashion. Since then, though, this thing dropped. They announced yesterday in California that the LAPD Special Victims Unit is going to be researching this, and there's a decent chance. Ashley G, good to see you. There's a decent chance that this dude's going to catch some more charges. Kristen Melinda, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. That's no joke. There's a decent chance that this guy could catch more charges, and the accusation that he's facing is it's basically a rape charge. Allegedly, he forced him to perform sex acts on him, and then he did something really creepy with Notorious B.I.G.'s shirt. Apparently, he rubbed one out. And Kathy, good to see you. Lisa Trimble, what's happening? He rubbed one out into the shirt and then said some weird stuff. That to me sounds really odd. Monk, 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 monk. That to me sounds really odd. I mean, it may have happened. Who knows? But it's probably too weird to make up. You know what I mean? It's kind of you with me on that? It's kind of a weird detail, is it not? I find it to be a very strange detail. It is, absolutely. If you force someone to perform oral sex on you, it's sexual assault. It's going to fall into the same category, I think. Hey, Chase the Heat out in LA. I don't think it'll be a whole lot different. Big J, what's happening? And you know what? Let's keep it real. Everybody wants to see this dude more time. Hey, B-Chap, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Everybody wants to see this cat do more time. That's not just people that watch content on the internet. These are people that, for better, I mean, across the board, for better or worse, everybody wants this dude locked up. And I can't say that I blame him, right? He is a absolutely reprehensible person. I want to know more about the portrait of Clinton in the blue dress. Okay, right inside Epstein's house. This would have been his New York, believe it or not, one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive property in New York is the townhome that was allegedly given to him by Les Wexner. This is a wicked expensive property. It's not, they call it an apartment or a brownstone. It's a mansion is what it is. It's a mansion, and you could hit a 9-iron to Central Park. He had hanging inside his house in Manhattan a portrait of Bill Clinton sitting in a blue dress. You can Google this, and the image will pop up instantly. The artist also did one of George Bush, not George Herbert Walker Bush, but just George Bush, the second one. They have a painting of him knocking over a bunch of blocks that kind of look like they might have been Twin Towers kind of a thing. The author, to the best of my knowledge, only did those two paintings that got popular. Tara, good to see you. That's probably the only two that really kind of gained any kind of popularity. What else is going on? Danny Masterson news from yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to tell you guys yesterday because my neck was jacked up and I wasn't feeling particularly good. But Danny Masterson is back in the news because his attorneys have just filed a habeas corpus, and which, if you're not aware of, this is one of the things that you can do if you're trying to get somebody out of jail. Renee B., good to see you. Glad that you're here. This is one of those things that to me is an absolute waste of time. I don't see that there's any chance of him getting a new trial. Here's the claim on his habeas corpus. He's using ineffective counsel. This is kind of the Hail Mary if you're locked up. This is one of those things that no matter what is going on, if you can prove that your lawyer sucked, that you didn't get adequate representation, it will always land you back in court with at least the potential for some kind of relief. You may not get a new trial, but there are, it's very, very popular. It's sort of the last thing that you can do, because if your appeals have been exhausted, so you do your normal appeal. Now his are not. Danny Masterson's appeal is still moving forward. But this gives you two bites at the apple, so to speak, especially if you're not going to continue to pay the high dollar mouthpieces that, for whatever reason, didn't work. Yeah, you know what? This is pretty good. You have jury duty next week. Ashley G, you should, yeah, always blame the lawyer. Kind of works. Danny doesn't really deserve a second look. I agree with you. I don't think that he does. It seems like shut the you know what up would be better approach to try to get out of jail for him. Well, if he doesn't shut up, Big J, good looking out, man. Look at that. Appreciate the heck out of that. If he does nothing at all, he's still going to be looking at popping out of there in about 30 years or so, with good time and whatnot. 30 years is an awful long time to do in the pokey anyway, but he's also doing it in tough time. He filed some paperwork. Jamie Palmer, good to see you. He filed paperwork yesterday, if you're just getting here, because he says he had ineffective use of counsel. His attorney didn't give him a fair shake. He claims in this the habeas that he filed that his attorneys failed to contact 20 witnesses for him. Now, that may or may not be the truth, because very often if you sit down with an attorney, you'll say stuff like, oh, there's 100 people that can tell you I didn't do this, or there's 50 people that can vouch for my character. You're not going to parade all of those people through court. If all of the witnesses were, it's sort of a tough thing when you talk about sexual assault, because there aren't witnesses to that usually. I mean, sometimes there are, but usually not. Tara says, seriously, it shows the audacity of these people. Big J, thank you again. I really appreciate it. You know what, Tara? It does show audacity, but on the flip side of that, you can't really blame this dude for doing what he's doing while he's locked up. And what I mean by that is he has nothing to lose, right? He has nothing to lose whatsoever by filing this. Aren't most celebrity or well-off persons always trying an appeal or a Hail Mary continuously while in prison? Sassy Savage, yeah. And that's kind of why I said I'm not mad at him for filing paperwork. That is the norm, right? That is what most people do. And it's frustrating, right? Nobody wants to see this dude continue to have any kind of hope, and I get that. But from his standpoint, he has zero to lose and a hell of a lot to gain. Now, I should rephrase that, because that's not exactly true. He does have something to lose, and this is what he has to lose. When his case is going to die, and what I mean by that is he's going to do 33 years in there. In about 7 to 8 years, most people are not going to have seen the show, that 70s show. There may be people on the yard going, you know, that dude was famous once. But it's not going to be a generation of people who go, oh my God, look at that. It's the dude from that 70s show. Isn't that the dude that played the Burnout? Debbie Zito, good to see you. But you understand what I'm saying? Every 7 to 10 years, all of that turns over, and you end up with a whole new group of people that you don't have to worry about whether or not they know you. When you file new paperwork, it pops up in the computer. So all of the fellows, like, there were a lot of idiots that got busted in the law library, because these guys would go and file frivolous habeas corpuses. And what happens is You can now go look up any pending case on the computer from inside prison, and it gets a lot of people hemmed up, because as much as they say every single yard you hit is going to be checking paperwork, that's just a lie. The higher custody yards are doing that. So at the bottom custody level, it's just not that big a deal. Yeah. Tara, you know what? It's fun to be famous. It's terrible to be infamous. And that cat is infamous, right? There aren't going to be too many people in there that care much about him. And the complaints that came out from last week, he's a little low at the moment, because his wife is filing paperwork to get the daughter's last name changed from Masterson to Phillips, which is a hoot, because the Phillips family is got a pretty long and checkered past as well. But whatever, right? It's a bummer to him, and I guess it hit him like a punch in the stomach. Yeah, you know what, Sassy? That's probably a great way to put it. The generations that are going to be going in there now that lived through the trial and all of this stuff, he's going to be considered a sick predator. They're not going to care what show he was in or any of that. That's actually pretty legit. I am going to be so happy when all of this is over. When summer comes, I don't know what the heck I'm allergic to, because I don't know the name of anything here, but it's getting everybody. I was in church on Sunday and nobody could breathe. It was pretty rugged. So if you got here late, Sean Combs is looking at a new investigation in Los Angeles for allegations that he sexually assaulted a guy on multiple occasions, and then did some other creepy stuff, rubbing one out in front of him, and using allegedly a shirt from the notorious B.I.G. to clean himself up. And I don't know, man. It's an odd story. Yeah, I promise you, he's not getting out of prison. Here's what happens with this. I promise you. So there was a really famous case in, and I've talked about this before, out of Massachusetts, where a guy put somebody out of prison that they shouldn't, and the guy went and killed somebody. Raped her first, if I'm not mistaken. And it was one of those things that has become part of the political landscape in the U.S. Nobody wants to have one of those moments ever again. And Diddy, hey, Relatable Reese, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. This is one of those cats that pardoning him would destroy your party, for real. And what happens is places like TMZ, TMZ does a show between Harvey Levin, the guy that started and is the brains behind TMZ, and Diddy's lawyer. Well, the father of Diddy's head lawyer and an advisor to Diddy, they're doing shows together. So that guy leaks some stuff, and they fly it out there like a trial balloon to see how America's going to take it. And if America goes, right, they're hoping that everyone was going to rally and say he shouldn't be in there. He was only charged with, he only got convicted of basically a prostitution charge. It's a cross state line prostitution charge, which is what makes it a federal offense. But for all intent and purpose, it's just paying somebody for sex, right? Pandering, they call it. But that didn't fly. Everybody just got pissed. And then they were kind of forced to talk about some stuff like him getting caught drinking in prison. Don't send me an email and say he didn't. If you lost good time, there's an infraction. Ask anybody in the feds how much time you lose the first time you get caught drinking or making hooch or getting high. You lose 27 days of good time. They can take up to 60. They don't. Unless they come in and you've got a pile of drugs you're cutting up or something like that, it doesn't happen. I found out that just Maxwell had a puppy and a personal trainer in prison. Yeah, you know what? I've heard this. I have heard this, Tara, that Ghislaine Maxwell has a puppy and a personal trainer in prison. This may be exaggerated, and the reason I say that is this. There are prisons that do dog programs, and they're usually lower custody yard kind of places. They may be, she may be training a dog. I don't know that she has a puppy as a pet or anything along those lines. These things kind of get blown out of proportion. I can't find anything to actually document that. I looked all over the place for it. But the personal trainer thing, everybody in prison is a personal trainer, right? There's a person that works there. That's what they do. And if you go down there and say, I want to get in shape and I want to do this, that cat will put something together for you. Now, she may be bringing in a personal trainer from the street and, maybe there's a chance that one of her family members dropped off a puppy. I would really find that odd, because once again, that kind of crap rolls uphill. I was in prison with some really famous cats, and I was in prison with some really, really rich cats, and they're just not. Now, I mean, admittedly, she's a very different kind of an example. Greece is loving it. It's she's a unique example because she's the most dangerous woman on earth right now, and that's absolutely the truth in my opinion. She may be the most dangerous person on earth. They just took a vote, and everybody but one person in the House apparently voted to release the Epstein files, so we are going to be seeing them. Diddy has shown issues with Biggie, just the Frank Black copyright court recently. Gone, but still Diddy's head. You know what? Well, he had talent. I don't think Diddy was ever worth a fart on stage or anything like that. I think that what he's good at is manipulating people, and that's the kind of industry where if you are in a ability to if you have that ability to kind of manipulate people and get them to do what you want them to do, that's the kind of gig built for somebody like Diddy. He's a sick human being, and those kind of people thrive in those environments. I know that sounds horrible, but it's the truth. It's kind of what that industry is about, right? You're playing human chess. You're stealing people from one label to put into another. You're manipulating those people. The music industry, until recently, was one of the all-time greatest scams in history. It really was. You would go in there and they'd say, all right, we're going to cut we need to cut the first demos or get a record out. And they say, all right, it's going to cost about 250 to 500 grand to get that done. You guys got that money? And of course, none of them do. So they sign a contract where the record label basically gives them the money in advance to pay for the records that they're going to sell. It was really a horrific business. And what they would do is say, all right, we pressed this many records, right? We're going to do a pressing of 100,000. When those are sold, you know exactly how much you're getting paid. Every single band got screwed over by this. They would put up factories in other countries and press albums and sell them all over the world, and that would never have come up in front of these guys. That entire industry is just so filthy and disgusting, and bands get picked for a lot of reasons, and one of them is because you got sexually assaulted and didn't report it. Tell me, why do you think Trump switched his tune on the release of the files? My humble opinion, and I know that this isn't going to be popular with most, but I've said from the beginning, if there was stuff in the files that was going to incriminate our current president, then the Dems would have released it when they had it for 8 years, right? They've had these files forever. Neither side does it. I think that this is probably one of Big J. I know that a lot of people are. I don't think it's going to be as exciting as people think, and they're going to yell, this has been cleansed. It got cleansed, in my opinion, before it ever left the island. They should have been taking boatloads of stuff out of that island. And if you go to look up the images of it, when you see the feds walking out with stuff, it doesn't look like that was an operation that had been going on for as long as it has. It didn't make any sense to me, if that makes sense. But here's what I think. Big J, you are a stud. DMV, that's the perfect question to ask, in my opinion. Do I think Ghislaine is a co-conspirator? Renee B says, no, I think that she literally was the operation. I think that Epstein would have been a co-conspirator. That's kind of my opinion on that one, right? This is my opinion on the flip-flop on this. Again, if the Dems had it, they would have released it. Neither side want this released. So this is not so much about damaging politicians, because they'll sacrifice their own if it'll benefit them, right? Much less somebody else's party. Bill Clinton is, by all accounts, really deep in these files, right? I don't think too many people don't believe that, right? So the Dems may have wanted to do that to protect the president that's already gone. I don't know, maybe. I mean, that's a possibility. I think that if they keep putting stuff in the press about you that isn't true, and maybe this is how he feels, he's not going to be in those files, is what he says, and I tend to believe that. So I think this is probably a situation where he's like, all right, you know what, F you, I'm just going to release it. You guys want to play the games? I'll just release it. I think this is probably a very dangerous time for him to be president, because if these files are even halfway legit, then we're going to figure out who was responsible for 2,000 young young girls from all over the world who were assaulted. And God only knows if any of them were bumped off, because there's not like a lot of the way that these people were coming in. Allegedly, the guy that hung himself in the French prison, who was friends with Epstein, this would have been Jean-Luc Brunel. I got to stop every time I say that, because I was rolling one day and I said Jean-Luc Picard, and I probably will never live that down. You're right, Tara. This thing lives on so many levels. Big J, you're a stud. This lives on so many different levels. It's ridiculous. And my opinion, because Tara says it's more trauma either way. This stuff works for so many agendas, and it hurts so many people in so many ways. Yeah, and we've got Ehud Barak flying to the United States to kick it with Epstein, right? And allegedly, in her book that just destroyed the prince, the Mont Blanc Windsor, the guy that used to be a prince. The book written by her, I cannot think of her name off the top of my head, but the woman that just came out with a book, who had died 6 months ago, allegedly killed herself. I am of the opinion that, come on, somebody throw it up there for me. It's going to be, no matter what the release is, it's not going to be what we want it to be. What we want this to be is a list of all of the people that did anything with any young girls, and that, I don't believe that's in the file. I think that it's a more of a read between the lines kind of a thing, because I think that this is going to incriminate other countries. Debbie Zito says it will be so redacted anyway. Neither wanted it released for national security reasons. Yeah, you know, that in and of itself, Virginia Gouffre, thank you, Debbie Zito. Thank you, I appreciate that. Virginia Gouffre alleged that the most violent person that she was with was a prime minister that everybody would know. The only prime minister that I know that got anywhere near Epstein would have been Ehud Barak. So you're looking at some really big and powerful countries. Like, that dude may have been a prime minister, but he was a prime minister in Israel. Oh, I think it's being used transactionally. Absolutely. Absolutely. And for a lot of different reasons. Picture this, right? Just critical thinking doesn't mean that this is right. I am throwing this bad boy out just so that we can all go, well, sometimes if you think about it in other ways, right? So allegedly, there was a time when Nixon used information that he had to protect himself from getting bumped off. And this was right on the heels of the Kennedy assassination, right? Pretty fresh in everybody's mind. And allegedly, he came across some stuff about a 3-letter agency that was involved. Have I ever told you about my Ted Kennedy story when I was 17? Renee B. met Ted Kennedy. Please tell me you were nowhere near Chappaquiddick. So there may be, if let's say that 2 agencies were knee deep in this, and they were the Central Intelligence Agency and it was the Mossad, and both of them were in this deep. The president could be using those files as a what do they call those things? A dead man switch, right? Where you hold the lever, because if they shoot you and you die, you release it. It's like people that say, something happens to me, these files are going to go to the New York Times. I've already talked to a couple of people there, people at CNN, people at Fox. So often these things get used that way. I have said, I think he's the current president, and this is kind of where he lost me, but I think he's using the files as blackmail against people in Washington, and not because their names are in it, but because it's going to out probably our intelligence agency. And if you look at the history of the Central Intelligence Agency, if there's anything that Doge should have got rid of, I mean, we need to have something, obviously, to protect the country, but that is one of the most unbelievable agencies on planet Earth. I mean, you talk about just pure evil. Yeah, you're right there. The critical thinking is dying, if not dead, and that's a frightening concept to me. It really is. It's a frightening concept to me. The amount of stuff that we see that is fake on a day-to-day basis. If you turn on YouTube and you watch for 45 minutes, you're going to see things that are completely AI generated. They have absolutely no human involvement with anything in it. I find that terrifying. I really do. I sent Reese a video that I found funny. It was of a politician that you would all know well, but I won't say the politician's name. But they're sitting at a desk having an interview. And I thought to myself, this is an interview I've seen before. There was a CNN thing around it. And it's a short on YouTube. And right halfway in the middle of the question, there's a look like a stutter that in the speech. They kind of froze up a little, puts on a big sombrero and tips back a bottle that looks like it either had rum or bourbon in it, and then fell over in a chair. Funny as hell. And you would bet the farm it was real. What they're able to do these days is scary. You were on a school trip and guided by an assistant at a Senate hearing to meet him. Good Lord, that is so funny. The part of the problem with critical thinking is confirmation bias. Yeah, well, you have to say, all right, this is kind of what I think. Now what you've kind of got to do is go in the opposite direction. Tommy, don't you think that most of the alphabet agency have tons of borderline, if not totally illegal things that they have done and hidden? I have zero trust in government agencies anymore. Yeah. Here's the thing. We don't even have to question that. Right? We can go and look at what the FBI did, what the CIA did, right? The CIA, for the people that brought you MK Ultra, right? We're just going to go and grab somebody and dose them up with tons of acid. This is real. It's 100% real. It's I find it frightening that we and this is no fault of this isn't a critical thinking issue. It's no fault of the people in America, but there's so much history of our country that no one knows. There's so much history of our country that is just out and out lies. And I'm not saying it's not a great country. I love America. I really do. But, there's just so much that's BS. I talk about it a lot on here, but we knew Pearl Harbor was coming. A day that will live in infamy. We knew that was coming way before it got there. And we did nothing to get the guys out because they didn't want to tip off any spies that might have been local, that they knew what was coming. So they just let those guys die because it was an acceptable loss to get into World War II. And you look at the way it turns out, you go, well, it worked out well, unless your dad was one of the 3,000 plus sailors who died on that. Who is MTG? I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. Karen Rowan, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Is the same true for other countries? You know what, Sandy Wendy? I don't know that I could answer that question. I don't know that I can answer that question. Let me ask you a question and see what you guys, how many of you are hip to this. Do you know what's going on in Mexico? Put a 2 in the chat if you're aware of some of the unrest that's happening just south of our border. Because there's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Thank you, MTG. Well, I think that he's done, when you run on something, if you say, I'm going to do this, and then you don't do it, we're used to that with every politician. But the last time he ran, everything he said he was going to do, he worked very hard to try to do, right? But she's a person that I don't think takes a lot of crap, and I'm probably the same reason I did. I voted for one issue, and I told everybody that. I believed that the border could be shut down. And if you heard Bernie Sanders, right, he said, I'm leaving the Democratic Party because you've been lying to everybody, right? You said you can't throw a switch and shut down that border. He did, right? He threw a switch. But he also said he was going to release the Epstein files, and I was hot to trot on that, right? I was talking about Epstein since he died. She may run for president in 2028. It's going to be, here's the thing. I love I think she's a lot of fun to watch. I would be really nervous, though, about if we just keep amping it up with personalities that are a little bit more extreme. I dig her, but you got to admit she's extreme. And I think a president yelling F you from the, from the podium might not be a good thing. And she's got it in her. She's kind of wild. The U.S. doesn't report on Mexico. We'd actually have to go and look for that news. That is sad, isn't it? But there are a lot of protests that, they're trying to break into government buildings. They're getting pretty rowdy down there. And you know what they're pissed about? Living in a narco state. No joke, living in a narco state. By the way, because I know that a bunch of you get concerned and send me a ton of emails. People say that the most dangerous place in South America, or the most dangerous place on earth, is Ecuador, and you just keep hearing this. And here's the deal on that, because I don't want anybody being concerned or worried about this. Where I live, it's like taking the United States, and you say, well, I'm taking a vacation to the United States. And you say, good Lord, if you end up in Chicago, do you know how many people get shot there every weekend? And the person goes, no, I'm going to New Hampshire, right? There's a big difference between, that part of the Northeast and the kind of crime that's been going on in Chicago. I think most developed countries have similar history, if non-factual facts. Yeah, non-factual facts. What a great way to put that. So I'm in a part of this country that doesn't see the gang activity. What really happened here is gangs. And it was Mexican cartels that came into Ecuador, because this is on the sort of the cocaine superhighway, right? You got Peru, you've got Colombia, you got all of those places right here, and getting from there to the coast, you got to go through Ecuador. So there's a lot of people that kind of get hot to try to take over those routes. I heard she wanted to be governor of Georgia, but he told her no because she wouldn't get the votes. I don't know. I can look that up, DNV, and see what I can find on that. So the people, when the cartels came down here, the president that was the previous president to Daniel Noboa, who's the president now, tried to shut down the growth of the gangs, and it wasn't particularly successful. And Noboa ran kind of as I'm going to clean this thing up kind of stuff. Every city has bad areas, absolutely, and every country does. This is a very large country, and we have a much smaller population. So that skews numbers, right? That makes things look considerably worse, because they don't just say numbers of murders. They say numbers of murders per 100,000, right? And if you've got a population of 250,000 people, right, it's very different than having 330 million people. But if you take the kind of the violence that goes on, pick the 3 nastiest cities in the U.S., right? And if you pick any of those 3 cities, what you end up with is a place that is probably as bad, if not worse, than the worst parts of Ecuador. But when Daniel Noboa got in, like he declared war on the drug gangs, and it seemed to work. Like that's went down in 2024. 2025 has been bad, but it hasn't been bad here. We don't see any of that in this part of the country, because nobody's trying to put cocaine on boats to take out of where we're at. It just wouldn't be advantageous. It would be a bad move all the way around. Well, you know what? I don't think anybody. I think that you'll be happy, Reese. It is really a peaceful place to live. As crazy as that sounds, if you've never seen the short that I did, I can walk out at 2:00 in the morning and walk around the city. I'll be the only person doing it. But it's not what you think at all now. I wouldn't do that in Guayaquil. I wouldn't do that past 9:00 at night. I don't even like being there. Is the drug pipeline anywhere near you? Peru and Colombia can travel through. Yeah, So everywhere down here, especially if you are a port country or a port city, and Ecuador is the most west point, right, of South America. So it's a great jumping off point, but it doesn't. This where we're at is not the place they want to come for a couple of reasons. One is it's a peninsula, right? And if you do dirt on a peninsula, they just got to put a couple of trucks at the end of the peninsula. You're not going anywhere. They can make it very difficult for you to get out. Now you can jump on a boat, but the problem with that is at the end of the peninsula is the Navy, right? The Air Force, the Army, and their version of the commandos, like the SEALs. And they're right on the same peninsula. And it's not a big peninsula. So but they had a referendum. This is why I brought this up. Is the drug pipeline anywhere near you? Oh, I'm sorry, I already read that one. So they had a vote day before yesterday. You have a friend who's from Quito. Quito has seen some violence, right? It's not Chicago, but Quito has seen some violence. The really horrific numbers, a lot of them also come from, this is gang on gang. I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but every time gangs kill other gangs or whatever, I always do that, oh no, right? It's not like they're, these are churchgoers. These are people that, if you're in that line of work, that's that's like dying of natural causes. If you're part of a drug cartel, getting shot in your head is dying of natural causes, right? But a lot of those deaths took place inside Ecuadorian prisons. The prisons in Ecuador are run by gangs big time. And they're run not in the sense like U.S. gangs. These gangs are drug gangs. They're cartel gangs. And they recruit from within the prison system. They had a couple of riots, one of which there were 33 guys, I think. It was either 23 or 33 in the last riot that got killed. That's a butchering in a prison, right? That's absolutely terrifying. What's even worse is apparently one of the weapons used was a chainsaw. I guess right out of the movie Scarface. I don't know how someone gets a chainsaw into a prison. But again, this is a huge country, and it is a very diverse country. You have a lot of beachfront, and you also have mountains, right? The Andes are part of Ecuador. You also have rainforest, and then you just have cities that are like 9,000 feet above sea level. You know, there's so much diversity in this country. But I was pretty careful about where I picked. This violence had been going on. This isn't like I got here and I was like, oh no. I mean, we researched everywhere, and you know, Mexico. I remember saying to people, they were like, "Mexico's so much safer." I said, "Mexico's going to get really, really crazy." I will admit when I'm not right, because and I don't know if I ever shared this, but I didn't think that Mexico would go through what it's going through now, which is them saying these are youngsters, right? And I've said this before: pull a bowstring far enough, and when it snaps back, it always goes in the opposite direction, right? This is a situation where the younger generation, right? These are kids 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. They're pissed off about drugs. They want the cartels out of Mexico, and they're storming the government because of it. Well, if you were going to take a cruise to Guayaquil, I mean, you can go into Guayaquil, but that's a dangerous city currently. It just is. That's one of the biggest places for the gangs. And here's, so when Noboa got in, everyone was trying to figure out exactly why he was able to do what he did. Because in the beginning, crime broke down really, really quickly. What they did was they took out the heads of all of the gangs. And this is going to sound really stupid, but I swear to you, they write books about this. If you take out the people that are running a crime organization, there usually is no structure to keep that crime organization in place, which is why they take the head of it off, right? You take off the leader. The problem becomes every swinging you know what in town kind of wants to be the new gang, and you end up with 2 to 3 times more gangs than you had, because it spawns competition, and competition means murder, right? It's all bad stuff. So I kind of think that's it. Right, Tommy Brew. And I will be getting to the what's wrong with Tommy, but I wanted to catch up on this stuff. I get it. My daughter lived smack dab in downtown Chicago for 4 years through college. It was fine. The scary area in the South Side doesn't mean there wasn't crime, but you just have to be aware at all times. Yeah, I think that's spot on. New York City's the same way. You know what I mean? Like, there are places that you can go to in New York where you're like, oh, good Lord. And then go 3.5 miles away from there, and you can see some of the most unbelievable properties and just affluence. Cities are strange. But yeah, Guayaquil, I find it scary a bit. There are car bombs, there are executions. That's a real thing. It happens. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I've shot videos here at night. This is a very, very mellow part of Ecuador. It's where Ecuadorians vacation, right? It's where they come to chill out. But so they had a referendum, and it was how politics works down here is a little bit different. So there were some things that they wanted done, one of which was going to be to draft a new constitution, which happens a lot in Ecuador. They could get together and draft new constitutions constantly. But it was voted 60% no on that. There was also something on there to allow the United States of America or other countries to have military bases here in Ecuador. Now, the United States already has one up near Manta. They just wanted to bring the American troops and ships back. They voted that down as well. They also wanted to make the government smaller. They were going to cut out some of the different positions within government. That also was voted down. I don't think there was one thing on this referendum that they voted yes on. I thought the area outside Buffalo, New York was beautiful, and even near, I say near not, on the coast of Lake Erie as well. You know what? My boss had a big property in New York on, and it was up near that part of the world. I'm trying to think of the name of the town that he lived in. Honeoye was the name of the town that he lived in. But he had like 300 yards on Lake Erie of beachfronts. Huge, huge place. In fact, if you've ever seen me in an infomercial, we might have been filming it there. True story. Where I was born in Queens at the time, 1983, drug trades would be on the corner. Yeah, well, you know what, DMV? That was a rugged time everywhere, right? The 80s were we saw the crack wars. The cocaine and crack epidemic of the 80s was just absolutely awful. And completely manufactured by the United States of America. We brought all of that blow in here so that we could sell it on the streets and take the cash from that and buy guns to take to fight the Contras in Nicaragua. Or was it the Sandinistas? Who cares anymore? The idea was, though, that we didn't want communism banging on our back door, and the Iran-Contra affair was born. The idea being that we were selling guns to the Middle East, of course, through some intermediary, right? Somebody else had to make those sales. We couldn't be seen doing it because we didn't get along with the people we were selling to. That whole thing was filthy. And you know what? The narrative that I got taught back in the day, the books I read, was all BS, every bit of it. None of them mentioned Jeffrey Epstein. But when you start doing deep dives, he was working for Adnan Khashoggi through that entire period of time, moving money around the world. He was knee deep in the Iran-Contra affair. We never heard about it. So the deal he got in Florida, everything that has happened to him, these aren't the things that happen to men. Not rich men, not famous men. This is the kind of stuff that happens to spies. This is the kind of stuff that happens to people that have a vicious, vicious attachment to a government. Yeah, Lake Erie has gotten beat up. I think it's an ebb and flow. Wow, did I screw up that message? But you understood. It was supposed to be hope. You're good, just Joan. Happens to the best of us. So yeah, in the 1980s, there was so much cocaine in the U.S. If you remember, if you were old enough to remember those times, Miami Vice was one of the most popular shows on television, and every episode was about guys selling kilos of coke. In 1988 or 89, they used to do that Forbes 500, the 500 richest people in America, and their opening, right, their introduction to the magazine said, you know what? It's hard to tell now who really has all the money, because if you are halfway decent with a pistol and you got a little bit of huevos, you can head down to Florida and get into the drug trade. And those people are making so much money and stashing it and hiding it. But it was really insane. And there was just cocaine was all over the place, and it created a ton of violence. Not so much when they were selling it powdered, but when it got down to selling $10 worth of this stuff in rock form, it got really ugly really quick. You saw a bunch of footage of the Mexico uprising, says Kathy. Yeah, it's, you know what? I'm kind of rooting for them. You know, you don't want to see you don't want to see violence of any kind. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. But take back your country, man. You know, this happens. If you just keep doing wrong long enough, a generation's going to come up and go, screw you, right? No matter what direction you go in. Either, you know, you could be way left or way right. Your kids are going to rebel against that. You know, that's just kind of how it happens. If you're a conservative, your kids are going to be liberal. If you're a liberal, your kids are going to be conservative. They may change over time, but it's one of the easiest ways to rebel against your parents. And you listen to your parents talk about politics and things, and you think they can't be right. They're not right on anything. It takes years to figure that out. Oh, there are tons of expat communities in Cuenca. Cuenca is probably one of the biggest retirement expat spots in Ecuador. There are parts of it that apparently are very, very, I don't know what you would call it, Americanized. There are so many Americans there that there are movie theaters playing films, you know, strictly in English, and there's all kinds of stuff to make people that are coming there to retire feel comfy. You know what? I was talking about this with Johnny Scoville today. I don't feel any humidity here. I feel zero humidity here now, and we're into the hot season now for real. I think it was 85 the other day. Forget about it. I mean, this place is always either 70 or 75, and I do mean always 70 or 75. You already live 2,500 feet above sea level. Oh, Jamie Palmer, you'd be set. However, if you move to the coast, it's like being on steroids. You take that first big lung full of oxygen and find out it's got way more oxygen in it in the air than you're used to. It's fun. Yeah, I'm not a fan of humidity. I lived in Houston, and man, it was the humidity there. You'd go outside to check the mail, and when you came back in, you'd be sweating. It was just absolutely brutal. All right, people, let's talk about what's wrong with me, because there's a whole host of things that are wrong with me, and it's probably not what you think. Well, it could be, but I want to try to explain this thing as well as I can. I am still waiting for prostitution to be regulated and legalized like any other profession. I think legalized cannabis in certain USA showed it can work. Well, I'll tell you what, it's legal in Ecuador. It's been legal in Ecuador since 1912. That's my understanding. Yeah, there's a huge expat. Renee B says, would you consider Asia as there's a huge expat community in Asia, and some places that I think right now one of the fastest growing places for people to go as expats is Vietnam. Hugely popular. So in the Southeast Asia, yeah, a lot of people go to Thailand because the cost of living in Thailand is really, really low. I did not. It's not a place I could have lived. It was fun to go on vacation there, but I couldn't live there. Yeah, you know what? I've always been a big fan of the no victim, no crime type of type of a mentality. Is Kava breaking sobriety? Well, you know what? Here's the deal. Tommy's hair gets crazy in humidity. That's the one problem I got. It frizzes out. It looks absolutely horrible. I'm not big on telling anybody if they're breaking sobriety. If that's breaking sobriety, here's the deal with this stuff. How are you doing it? Are you drinking it in a little blue bottle that you buy from the gas station? What's that stuff called? I can't think of the name of it right now. It looks like a 5-hour energy, but it's Kava, and it's also what you call it, that stuff that they sell that people, and no, it's handmade. Yeah, then it depends on how often you're using it, right? If you're using this stuff and you can't go a day without it, that's probably an issue. But if you're using it every once in a while, or it's not, but there's a lot of stuff out there that you can get now, like Kratom, right? Or Kratom. Nobody seems to know exactly how to say it. Kratom is any of these drugs that are hitting the mu receptor. I don't care where you buy it. No, feel free. There you go. That's what it's called. Feel free. The guy that makes that should be in prison. Honestly, that stuff is just absolutely awful. Is Kratom a therapeutic device to decrease addiction? It depends on who you ask. If you ask me, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because the idea behind anything, like if you're using a substance for medical assisted treatment, and there are not a lot of medical assisted treatments for every drug out there. They started selling Kava as a supplement. I think it may have started that way. It gets used in a lot of gas station highs because Kava has got a bit of a punch to it. I'm actually on day 6 opiate withdrawal from Kratom. Oh my Lord. You know what? Rue, thank you so much. And you are funny. Hey, my hat's off to you, for real. That's a tough kick. And I would imagine that, are you starting to feel better on day 6? I'm curious. I've never had to kick Kratom. Never had it. I mean, I was already sober by the time that started to become really popular. But I have watched people go through it, and it looks to me like it may be a worse kick than heroin. Kratom seems a bit like spice in theory. Yeah, here's the deal. Kratom is natural. It's they grow this stuff, right? And then they process it. One of the problems that I've always had with any of those things is they're sold as supplements, right? They're not sold as drugs. And the problem with that is you're not going through the Food and Drug Administration. They're not looking at your stuff. So you can go in and buy that stuff that has been spiked with, picture my brother's business, right? If people are putting extract in hot sauce, then it's not really a pepper sauce, right? They're adding some really heavy stuff in there to make it burn. Kratom does this, and their quality control and stuff is questionable. Yes, I started to turn a bit better after day 3, but still in bed. Here's the good news. So that's almost exactly that. It just sounds like every other MU receptor kick, right? If you started feeling a little bit better after day 3, that's because the first 72 hours, the receptors are going to have everything off at hour 72. So as it's bleeding out, your receptors are wanting to grab more, and it makes you really irritable and pissed off, and you throw up and diarrhea and all the other fun stuff that comes with it. Hello, Barbara Waite. Good to see you. I used trying back in February to get off 10 years of Suboxone. What an odd way to get off. I was going to only use for withdrawal, but I got hooked on Kratom. You know what you would have been better off doing? Everybody listen to this, please. Everybody listen to this. If the beautiful thing about Suboxone, the thing that makes Suboxone worth never taking off the market is it's the only opioid on earth that you can actually step down off of and get off. So if you were doing, let's say they had you may have been abusing it, right? I don't know how you were using the stuff, but let's say you're on 2 strips a day. That's the fairly normal prescription. You just, over the course of 2.5 months, go from 2 to 1. And then over the course of 2.5 months, go from 1 to half, and just keep stepping down. And when the last little piece you're taking is 1/32 of a strip, I promise you can walk right off of it. I did. I've been off it. If Reese was here, she could probably tell you. Months, somewhere around July, I think is when I finally got off of it. Christy says, "You give me hope, Caitlin. Thanks for sharing. Alcohol is taking a while. I keep reminding, work in progress. When I get out." Here's the thing. So look, there are good relapses and there are bad relapses, right? Oh no, you jumped off cold turkey from 16 milligrams a day. That is a nightmare. And that would have been worse than the kick you're doing now. Except Suboxone, apparently it takes a month of cold turkey to get through the withdrawal. Yeah, it didn't happen to me, Tommy Bird. It didn't take a month for me. See, that's harm reduction, down to a half a strip a day. This is what I learned from prison, right? This is what I learned from prison. When I was in there, there were guys abusing that drug every single day that were doing 16th. They would take a strip and cut it into 16 cuts, right? So you had 1/16 of an 8 milligram strip. They're not doing a ton of this stuff. I think that, this is my personal opinion, I think that they have overprescribed. Is Suboxone you're talking about? Sounded bad. I am a fan of it. I think it's a fantastic drug, but it is one that you can step off of. My opinion, I'm not a doctor, right? I was just a drug addict, but here's my opinion on this. I think that they have overprescribed that to beat hell. And I don't mean giving it to too many people. I mean, I remember when Suboxone first came on scene, and there were people that were getting 4 strips a day. That doesn't even make sense medically. For real. The way they build that stuff, the bioavailability of the drug, this may come as a shocker too. If you're taking Subutex, which is buprenorphine, there's no Narcan in it. So they put an amount of Narcan in every single strip, and it cuts down on the bioavailability of the drug. And the more you take, the more Narcan you're getting into your system, and the harder it is for you to maintain a buzz. It's a beautifully designed drug. A lot of it is, most people don't need to be on 16 milligrams a day. I mean it. That's a hellacious amount of a really strong opioid. I think there would be a better world if the doctors maybe started doing 4 milligram strips and 8 for people that were really messed up, because I have seen so many people. No, yeah, I'm already off. I've been off of it for a long time, and there was no. I probably had 2 days of feeling like the flu, but it was literally nothing. Like I was kind of laughing about it. Alcohol is tough, Christy, but you know what? If you're taking less of it every day, that's harm reduction. Harm reduction works. When I started the channel, I didn't believe that it did, but I've watched so many people. Thank you, Reese. Yeah, it was. I think it was right around July. The thought of ayahuasca scares me. Curious what you think. So that's a great question. I have a problem. Ayahuasca is it's in the same drug family as DMT, right? It's a trip drug, a dissociative drug. So like LSD, like mushrooms, peyote, mescaline, those drugs that make you literally disassociate. Like you smoke pot, you know you're Tommy Scoville, but you're Tommy Scoville with a buzz on. There are drugs that you can do where you think that you leave Tommy Scoville for a while or you ascend to a different plane. It really kicks the brain chemicals in a way that almost nothing else does. Ayahuasca is it's made from ingredients usually in, like it's big in Peru. It's big in most of South America, but it's not for me. You know, I've done a lot of different drugs that can make you trip, dissociative drugs. I think I've tried almost all of them, but it's one that, you know, even when you hear people that are like seasoned drug users, you'll hear people say, yeah, that was a mind bender like nothing I ever did. It is ceremonial in almost all cultures. And I think it's a safer drug when it's done in a culture and it's part of the same thing that goes on and on and on, right? It's a tradition. But when you start bringing people from other countries down and they do like, I want to trip on this, that's a very different concept, right? I don't think ayahuasca is intended to be, to drink some of it and then go to a rock concert. I don't think that's, these are really heavy substances, and you should probably have somebody there to guide you. They used to use shamans for that. So there would be somebody there to kind of keep an eye on you, because these are the kind of drugs where, you really, if you disassociate bad enough, people jump in rivers and, fall off cliffs and things that, because your vision and everything else kind of gets different. Jane Oliver says, absolutely, they know what they're doing. Well, just more so than people just coming down, and drug tourism is a kind of a scary concept in my opinion, but that is a reality. There are people that go all over the world to try different substances, but I'm not somebody that's going to badmouth any of those substances. Ibogaine is also a dissociative drug. But what it's probably more famous for is that this gives you the idea. Dad always said mescaline and peyote were really different trips. I haven't done either. I've done both, and they're very, very different, right? The natural stuff is very different than like LSD or something made in the lab. So ibogaine kind of got famous. It comes from the iboga. It's a naturally occurring. It grows, right? But I believe it's a tree, the iboga tree. But that's where you get. They are hallucinogenics, right? But marijuana is a hallucinogenic and not a dissociative drug. So there are drugs within the hallucinogenic family that are on the way down low spectrum, right? And then there's the ones that are really on the top. And the top of the food chain seems to be DMT and then and ayahuasca, which is really, really rugged. But ibogaine got traction because clinics opened up, a lot of them in Mexico, where you could go down and they would give you ibogaine and you would take it and you would trip you'd trip, right? You'd have an experience, much like doing mushrooms or LSD or anything like that, mescaline. But when you're done, you're not going to want to do opioids ever again. That's the theory. Now, I went to one of these clinics and I tried every way you could try to get off heroin without the work in. I wanted the easy route. So I did that twice actually, and it worked for a friend of mine for about 7 months. It worked for about 9 days the first time I did it. And then I talked to somebody about it who said, no, you really got to work at it after the fact. And the truth of the matter is you trip so hard that you don't really go through the normal withdrawal symptoms. That is legit, right? You don't go through the same withdrawal symptoms that you would go through if you were just kicking it. However, it's a really strong trip. And there are some people that don't have a good time with it. I did. I laughed my ass off. But I was with a close friend both times that I went, and the first time we were just high on the fact that this was all going to be over. But it definitely gets hyped up better than it is. It's a horrific trip. It's pretty rugged. Especially if you do it alone, I think it would be really hard. I did it with a friend, and we were laughing. Yeah, the weed of today is not the weed that we grew up with. It's a very, very different situation. Yeah, but I don't badmouth hallucinogenics. I don't badmouth those drugs. And the reason that I don't is because I'm really more anti-addiction, right? And no matter what people want to tell you, you're not getting addicted to those kind of drugs. And the reason is, if you take something like LSD, the amount of brain chemicals that your brain has to fire off in order for you to have that experience, you can't keep doing it day after day, right? It takes a while for your brain to regenerate all that stuff so that you can do it again. If you do LSD 8 days in a row, I promise you by the 8th day, you'll have to be eating 150 hits if you want to feel it. And I'm not making that up. Like if you try to do it every day for a week, the first day you can do a hit. The second day you're going to have to do 2 or 3. Day 3 you might have to eat 8, 9. It just gets out of control to get the same feeling. So it's not something that people are going to get addicted to. You know, it's usually not those kind of drugs. And most people these days are its popularity. Unless you're in high school, the popularity with those drugs now is for people who want to study themselves, right? If you can knock the ego off of who you are and hey, Chris, if you can spend a couple of hours journaling, praying, doing things like that with absolutely no encumbrance of your ego getting in the way. Like I had friends that when we would talk about this stuff, we'd say, you know, if somebody's low, the drug tells them that they're cool. But if you're an asshole, you eat LSD, you're going to realize you're an asshole. It's pretty heavy. It's probably not one to be trifled with, any of those. And you know, when you hear people talk about the really bad trips and the really bad times, it's usually because what they're doing is really, really stupid. If you go into nature, like nobody says, yeah, you know, I ate mushrooms and went out in the woods and had a bad trip. They go to concerts or they go to places where there's a lot of people and lights and things going by quick, and they start doing or they're alone in a room, which is usually not an environment that's conducive to that stuff. You know, it's one of those get out in nature things. But that's just me, people. I'm not advocating its use, but I'm not going to badmouth it on here because it's not a coke, heroin, meth. Pills kind of a situation. It's a very different thing. Exactly, Chris. I think you nailed it. I'd rather drink alcohol. I was given a drug during a procedure that helped me with anesthesia but caused disassociation. Horrible. Yeah, it's some people really hate that feeling. I actually practiced pretty solid harm reduction on Suboxone, but still confused issues that now most most drugs cause issues. Like weed causes voices that need to be reminded with. You know what? The science, I think, is out on that, right? I know that there's a lot of people that microdot is hallucinogenic, but I was told it was rat poison. Well, no, what they said is that it had strychnine in it, and there are people that can really abuse, and if you abuse anything enough, you're going to pay the price, plain and simple. Microdots. LSD, they used to say about this all the time too, is that it had strychnine in it. Strychnine is a rat poison, but strychnine does end up in some drugs. It's not massive amounts or anything like that, but that's where that whole rumor started, that those things were. I ate mushrooms and let an idiot friend talk me into walking into a casino. Good times. I'm so glad you said that. This is literally probably the worst possible place on earth that you can trip. Tripping in a casino, ding, 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 people walking around. Oh, Lord. Suboxone has saved more lives than, I mean, the number of people that have been able to get off of some really heavy stuff from Suboxone. The trouble becomes how you do it. If you end up going to a clinic, and I'm not bad mouthing anybody's path to sobriety. But if you're going to a clinic to do it, the clinic has a vested interest to keep you at the clinic, right? So when you start to say to them, well, I'd kind of like to back down on this. It was like methadone clinics. Most people went into a methadone clinic, but they don't necessarily come back out of it. When you tell the people at the methadone clinic that you want to get off of it, in a lot of places, they just go, yeah, it's too soon. It's too early. It's like legal drug dealing. It's, yeah, abusing any drug is gonna jack your brain, I promise you. Suboxone really saved my life, just at the expense of my teeth, honestly. You know, I've heard a lot of people say that. I've been blessed, I guess. But you know, there are people that definitely have taken a beating on that. Yeah, the ayahuasca thing doesn't hold any appeal to me at all. I think that I think it's a little too rugged for my taste. You know, 25 years ago, when I was an idiot, I probably would have had a different opinion on this. These days, there's not a lot of drugs in my you know, in the repertoire. It's just not something that I came to realize. G'day, good to have you here. I came to realize that I was getting high on chemicals I already had in my head. That's kind of a big deal. Like, that revelation is kind of a big deal. Mushrooms are special. They grow in the dark, and mycelium communities, Chinese use mushrooms to learn best design methods from the mushrooms. I can believe that. I absolutely can believe that. The first time I smoked marijuana in high school, I saw aliens. Freaky. That is freaky. You were on Subutex pills. Yeah, so they're both buprenorphine. It's just one has a Narcan, so an antagonist. No, an agonist. It's got the antidote mixed in with the drug, which is kind of odd. Yeah, there's a class action lawsuit, I believe, going on right now about that. I don't know whether or not how far it's proceeding, but I used to get emails that said, you know, did you take Suboxone and lose your teeth? Why, thank you, Roberta. That's a kind thing to say. So I do want to explain my issues here. I'm too much self-control freak to even think about tripping drugs. I'd freak out. I can see that. I was positive the loss was causing pain in my wrists. That would be odd. All right, so I was going to talk about this last night, and I talked about it a little bit on the on one of the other shows that I did. I've been doing this 4 years now, and these days I interact with people in the chat, and I don't interact with people outside the chat. I don't talk to people that are in my chat on the street. I used to, and there was probably 50 to 100 people I was talking to at any given time. I think that one of the reasons that I used drugs as long as I did is because it made me very social. But I don't think by nature I am social, which is something that people always go, whatever, because they assume that being comfortable talking to people one-on-one would make you probably a great public speaker. And very often public speakers don't spend a whole lot of time talking to people one-on-one. I am very comfortable talking to a group of people. It's a little bit different when I'm not. And I would like to do this for a really long period of time. What does naloxone do for the body? It is the antidote to opioids. It knocks stuff off of the mu receptor. And we're learning about other things that it does within the brain. They're using this in experiments and in clinical trials for all kinds of other drugs to see if having that in your system, it works for alcohol. You can take that and it makes people who are just beginning to quit drinking have a much easier time with it. It's like medical assisted treatment. I've been saying this for a really long time. If you have the ability, don't quit anything without talking to a doctor, because the doctors can do an awful lot to help that. But I know I'm hurting people's feelings. On Suboxone since 2010, can't get off of it now, and I hate it. Michael, how much are you doing, if you don't mind me asking? Yeah, I am definitely not a social person. And I talked about this a couple of times on the channel back in the day. And I remember my first Christmas home from prison. It was a nightmare. Honestly, of all of the times that, and I mean, I loved being with my family, but when the family showed up in mass and all of a sudden the place was just packed and there were people everywhere and I was white knuckling it. And not because it made me uncomfortable, but because I was kind of the person that performed at all of those functions, right? I was the person that would talk to an entire group of people or entertain an entire group of people. And they kind of looked at me waiting for that. And I didn't, it's a bummer to go, yeah, I was wasted every time, I was hopped up. But not being hopped up, it makes it a more difficult thing for me to be comfortable with. And what's worse than that is, I'm also I'm self-conscious about certain things. My ability to remember stuff for 30 people I'm talking to went away in the first season, right? My ability to remember what everyone was talking to me about when there was 10 or 15 people went away last year. And these days, I write a lot of stuff down because I'm taking some action. There's some things that I'm going to be doing that hopefully is going to improve some of this. But I know I'm not trying to offend anybody, right? I'm really not. And it's bad for business. The more that I interact with people, the bigger the engagement, the more money you make and all of that stuff. I would like to be able to do this for a longer period of time, and I won't be able to. I just won't. So one of the reasons that I came to South America was because I wasn't going to know anybody. That may sound just awful, but I was not a trusting person of other people 20 years ago, right? I just never have been that cat. But in the last little bit, I have just gotten to a point where this is going to sound crappy, and it's not something that I want to come across that way in any way. But people will always say, they talk about in the word parasocial, right? People really bum out on this word because if a content creator says that on a channel, it's like saying, I hate all of you. And that isn't it at all. It's that there's all of you and you're all great people. And then there's the entity of all of you, if that makes sense. And that entity has people in it that did everything they could to destroy my life. Right? And it's none of you, but it leaves a bit of a hangover, and I'm not talking about videos. I mean, you want to make videos and do that stuff, knock yourself out. I'm talking about people that literally tried to get me arrested for things that I haven't done, try to get me investigated for human trafficking. I mean, are you kidding me? I do a YouTube show at least once a day for like 6 years. When the hell was I leaving the country to do some trafficking? Caitlin, absolutely. And you know what? You took an odd route, right? You took an odd route to sobriety. The way that you and I assume Suboxone was not the first drug that you did, right? You were using Suboxone to get off of something else. That would be my gut. Well, and thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate that. You should be really proud of yourself. It's not an easy thing to get off of anything that tickles your MU receptors. And you're going back to back. You're getting off of several things. Nothing wrong with, he says, relatable reason, nothing wrong with being overly social. I just don't like people who are overly social to the point of being disingenuous or phony. Well, I appreciate that. What a kind thing to say, Big J. I really appreciate that. Vicodin and Norcos. It's heroin in a pill. Right, the hydrocodone, right? Good stuff. Vicodin, so Vicoprofen. That's before there were the Norcos. There was a drug called Vicoprofen, which was Vicodin and ibuprofen, which was fun stuff. Vicodin and Norcos, yeah. So the 5s, 7s, 5s, and 10s, right? In Vicodin, that would be green, blue, and red speckled trouts. They're little pills that have speckles in them. You always wanted the blues. You always wanted the blues. Yep. Ibuprofen was, you know what? When that first came out, if you walked into any place and you said, I'm in pain, they would give you samples of it. They would flooded the world with ibuprofen. Came across a YouTube channel. My experience is what you do. We all have perspectives and cool thing to say. Yeah, I absolutely remember ibuprofen. Came across a YouTube channel. My experience is what you do. We all have perspectives and perceptions. He without sin cast the first. I got no stones left. Treat others how you want to be treated, etc., etc. All good stuff. So that said, I just don't want I don't want anyone thinking that it's personal or that I would like to be able to keep doing this for a long time. This is I enjoy this. I really do. This is something that and I think it's good for my brain. But there are aspects of what I do that have to change, and that's just part of the whole gig. And hopefully it isn't going to bum anybody out, right? You can only handle what you can handle. If I don't know, how long. Tommy Bird's been on the boat a really long time. Monk's been around a long time. In the first 2 or 3 years of this channel, I think we buried 12 people or something like that. We lost a lot of people because most of the audience were people struggling with drugs. Thank you, Big J. It was and it was always painful to me. I worked with all of these people one-on-one, and it just got to a point where I was putting myself in a position that was threatening my serenity, right? And when my serenity is DMSO, if I'm not mistaken. DMSO is what they put on the inside of the like fentanyl pouch and things like that to help stuff go through your skin quicker. Am I wrong on that one, Chris? Well, thank you, Jane. I appreciate that. Dimethyl sulfoxide. So is that what that stuff does? Is because I know that I believe that's the stuff that they help get drugs through your skin, like any kind of a pain patch. Always has that on the inside. Am I wrong on that? If so, then they use it for horses. And I think I might have done some testosterone once that was supposed to be for a horse. Believe it or not, that was a thing. Yes, it's a carrier. Okay. I thought that rang a bell. I was pretty sure that I had heard of that, and I'm pretty sure that's why. So it's used for horses. I also have had, this is driving me nuts with the nose. Thank you, Jamie Palmer. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you. And sorry. Anything with molecular weight of 600 and below through the skin. Okay. All right. That's probably a decent thing. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be doing some true crime. So come and check me out. I'm going to start doing my shows earlier in the day as well. I'm not exactly sure what time I'm going to start playing with it, but I kind of have to figure out a routine that's going to be good for as many people as possible. But we're getting into to the holiday season. I got to start doing my shows a little bit earlier. I will be putting up more content during the holidays. I always do. We all need a place to hang out during that time. It gets kind of tough. It may fall off at some point because I may be going to bug tussle. Ring a bell. Is it crack? No, you're close. The bell ringer. Yeah, you know, that drug. Someone was asking me about that a couple of days ago. I think it was at the rehab. Yeah, the true crime stuff. I've got a couple of them in the pipeline, so there are going to be some things we're going to talk about, and I'll be talking about the new case that is arriving for Diddy. I find it fascinating that it started out with a lawsuit, and now the police are investigating it. Sounds a hell of a lot like what happened 2 years ago at this time when Cassie Ventura dropped her lawsuit. It's an interesting time for that cat. Can you coordinate it so that we don't have to choose a live? You know what? I'll get with Quibs. That would be a very good idea. I'll do that. I promise you. I'll work on that. And I have a very flexible schedule. She's taking care of Hux. I can move mine around. I just want to make sure that we get as many people as possible. But I'll try a couple of time slots and see which one works the best, see what kind of feedback I get. But I would look for me earlier tomorrow. Say New York time. I think I'm on New York time now. I have no idea. But it would be earlier in the day, probably about 2 hours earlier in the day, somewhere in there. Well, I'll get with my brother too and see what he says. Might be able to pull that off as well. All right, people. I'm going to call it an evening. It's getting kind of late for me, but just want you guys to know that I do love all of you. It's a no, they're not. Yeah, I do got to get with Johnny if I can. Did you see the Koberger University is being sued? He had a crap history of behavior like Epstein's history. Yeah, you know what? I did see that. Big J, you are a stud. I really appreciate you. I really do. You're it's very kind. And it makes a huge difference, especially when you're building. And you know something, people, I was going to announce this yesterday, but well played, Chris. He says this was a dope live, pun intended. My subscriber count has been moving in the right direction for a solid 28-day period of time, which is it's been a minute. It's and honestly, it doesn't mess with my happiness one way or the other, but it is exciting that we're getting a little bit of traction. It'll put a smile on your face. So I appreciate all of you, especially those that stuck around and helped keep me in this. You guys mean the world to me. Thanks again, Big J. Thanks to all of you for your support. I really do appreciate you. Between now and the next time I see you, which will be tomorrow, put a little love in your heart and keep coming back. We'll have a good time. I'm Tommy. See you on the next one. Spanx is fantastic. He's going to be coming here after the new year. He's going to hang out down here with me for a bit. Not moving here, but he's going to come down and see me. Going to get his grill polished up. All right, folks. Have a great night.